Hey, everybody. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? We are back now for episode number 3 of Callings and Careers. Jessica, we on a roll now.
I know. I almost feel like we shouldn't call it episode, but masterclass number 3 because this is some good stuff.
It is, man. This is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
whole other level. This is a whole other level of content. And listen, I'm Christopher Harris, and this is
Jessica Canty.
we are co-hosts for Callings and Careers. This is your Christ-centered career coaching conversations. Come on, somebody. That alliteration, man, it just bam, like hit you right there with
it. And it's no fluff. It tells you exactly what you're going to get.
No fluff. Like you know what's on the menu based on that alliteration right there, based on that subtitle. We are so honored to have you listening in and gleaning in from us. Our commitment, both of our commitments, is to see people take what we're talking about in their lives to become better. We want you to be inspired. We want you to be motivated. We want you to be encouraged. We want you to have light bulb moments. We want to help you get better. And we have, in some ways, an overlap in the audiences that we're called to reach, and in some ways, distinct audiences. So, Jessica, tell everybody really fast about you and the work that you've been called to do.
Well, I am a life and career strategist. I have a passion for helping melanin millennial moms who want high achieving careers. And it's been my experience for over 20 years of helping people with their careers that there's 3 things they need. And so that's why I love this intersection that we're conversing about. And that's career path planning, discovering who they are in terms of their resume revitalization and reputation revitalization. So that refresh to that resume and a revitalization of their who they are. And so that's why I can't wait to get into our conversation today to support them around that.
I always get tickled when you start saying melanin millennial moms, because anybody else will get tongue tied, but you're so good with it. You like, man, this is like, I'm going to drop some bars on y'all. Like, what's up?
so maybe that's going to be my next career. We'll be spitting hot fire in my next career.
I love that. And thank you, Jessica, for what you've been doing and the work that you're doing. I'm Christopher Harris, and I have the amazing privilege to serve as executive pastor at Crossover Church in Tampa, Florida, better known as Champa Bay. How about that? Better known as Champa Bay. And also the founder and CEO of diversechurchjobs.com, where we help people of color in ministry find incredible ministry opportunities and churches that are looking for qualified candidates of color to join their team and to join their staff. And so our commitment through Callings and Careers is to help you, think about what it looks like. And here's the truth. Jessica and I are in agreement with this, that you do not have to turn your faith off to thrive professionally.
Come on. You need to activate.
You do not. Yeah. You do not have to turn your faith off to thrive professionally. And so this is episode 3, but I think, Jessica, you're right. These have really been masterclass level conversations. I've had people that have hit me up and like, man, I got 2 pages full of notes and I had to go back and watch this again. So I'm excited because today we are talking about something that can be considered to be a hot topic in church or faith circles, but it doesn't have to be. Today we're talking about personal branding. Ooh. I think people have to first realize, we're going to just jump right on into it. I think people have to first realize, like, you are a brand. Like, you are a brand. And like, this is backed up in scripture. The Bible says, and I'm going to find the verse while you talk in a minute, Jessica, but basically the Bible says that you can't put a price tag on a good name. That's what the Bible says. Your reputation, your name, your brand matters, which is why I don't like, one of my pet peeves, Jessica, is when people of faith say, well, you know, I don't care what people say about me. I think that is so dangerous. Like, because if you don't care what people say about you and what they're saying about you is true or not good, then it impacts whether or not they even have credibility with your voice, or your voice has credibility with them. So then now you're diminishing your influence in them. And now we got a problem, because you need to be able to have influence when you speak. So maybe you don't need to be consumed by what people say, but you do need to care what people say.
Absolutely. And, I think those who think that there shouldn't be concerned about it don't understand that your name is not just in social circles, but everyone understands that your name means something when they get their credit pulled. Or when it's time to do those
Oh,
W-2s, those taxes, right? Your
yep.
name means something. So if you want that refund, you will want the IRS to be talking about you. You will want them to have something to say about you. So I think that that's what it is. I think people compartmentalize the conversation about personal branding to just, people gossiping in church or gossiping in the workspace. But it really is much more expansive when we begin to talk about that personal branding. And you're so right. Everyone has to know about their own personal brand, because if you don't, then you will be branded. Other people will brand you, or corporations are going to brand you as their dollar sign. So you can take control of that
Ooh,
narrative, or continue to
ooh.
let people capitalize off of you.
That's so good. And we
Mhm.
see that happening now in like the NCAA with college athletes, where they're starting to take ownership of the fact that they recognize that they have a brand and others have
Mhm.
profited from their brand.
Absolutely. And it's because that's been a long going on ongoing conversation. Whether or not they should get compensated, and is it because they're students and all that. But again, it is a brand. They're attracting people to the school based on their talents. So
Yeah.
it will behoove you to make sure you're controlling that narrative.
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
let's jump into it, because today, as we talk about personal branding, do you think that this is even something that people even think about as they start their careers or navigate their careers, that they are a brand, and what that even means and what that looks like?
Based on my experience with people, I would say no. Based on being able to scroll through Instagram and LinkedIn, and people posting passive aggressive posts and highly politicized posts, I would venture to say that they do not think about their personal brand. Or if they're being rude to people in the grocery store, I think that they don't realize that all the elements that are in a brand. So based
Yeah.
on what I'm understanding, people no, and especially because people think, oh, brands are just for companies.
Mm, mm. That's so
It's not for
good.
the personal or individual. So they really don't understand that, no, your career is a brand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I don't,
Mhm.
like, social media has been around now for over a decade, right? I think when Facebook became public, in the sense that you didn't have to have a .edu email address to use Facebook, that was around maybe 2008 or so. And so here we are now, and that's, 14 years ago. So we're getting
Mm.
ready to come up on 15 years in a little bit. And it's interesting because I think people still think that, yeah, if I put something on social media, if I want to take it down, that is permanently gone. And that's not the case. Like, once, that's been a big lesson as a parent with teenagers, that we've been trying to make
Mhm.
sure that they know. And I've got a personal confession that I'll make even in this room right now.
So just between
My
us, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, my kids actually have to sign a contract before they
Ah,
can get on social media.
I like
We
it.
we read through it, we talk through it, and it's interesting that adults haven't taken this as serious, right? And so the first thing that's going to one of the first things that happens when you apply for a job, they're going to ask for references. So your brand absolutely matters. So let's take it further. What do people need to know when we talk about this whole idea of branding? What is a brand? How do they start? What's the starting point for it?
So quite often people think that a brand is just the public image. So if you see the
Mm,
golden arches, people will identify that with McDonald's. Or if you see or hear certain commercials, then that's that particular brand. It's got that catchy tune that resonates with you, that gets stuck in your head. But really, what it is they're selling their customer service. What is it they're offering to you? So that's
mhm.
really what the brand is. It's the evoking of the feelings that they want to make sure that they impart on you, so that you can begin that relationship and ultimately spend that money. So that's
Yeah.
brand in a greater sense. But when we begin to look at it more concentrated in a career space, I always say, please make sure you treat your career like the business that it is. And so
Mm,
there's a lot of practical tips to make sure that you are showing those your personal brand, both virtually and in person. We're going to get into that, but I just first want to say that that's really what it is. So when you see the golden arches, it's not just the word McDonald's that comes to your mind. You're thinking about what they're offering. When you go to McDonald's, you don't expect for someone to come sit you down at a table. You don't expect them you don't expect to wait 30 minutes. You'll be upset if you wait 30 minutes at McDonald's. And
yeah.
if you go to a more established restaurant, and I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about some of the finer restaurants like Legal Seafood or some of those finer restaurants that are here in this space.
Legal Seafood. Come on, somebody. Right during lunchtime.
Right. So you expect a different customer service experience. And so when you see that sign, that's the emotion, that's the thoughts that it's creating for you. That's the story it's creating in your mind. And that's the bigger thing. So a lot of people spend a whole lot of money, a whole lot of time on, I've got to go on this and I got to make sure I get my logo together. But you can have a logo and then only be associated with things that are not well thought out because you didn't put the time in. You can have a logo to be associated with something that's only going to give you half the service and not the complete service. Everyone has a story or experience with a particular company, and it doesn't matter where it's located. You'll say, you know what? I'm not going to that company anymore. There's a particular restaurant, I'm not going to say the name of it, but my mom and I have a different opinion of it. So when she rides by it, she physically becomes ill, and I get excited when I see it. Right. Wow. So that's because that's what the brand has done for us in our minds. So regardless of where she is in the country, that's what that brand is going to be recognized for when she sees it. So that's what we're really thinking about branding. What emotions do you evoke? What thoughts do people have about that particular brand? What experience are they going to get?
Man, that's so good. And what I think is incredible about that is that there are times where individuals, let's use the business brand for a second, then we'll come back to the individuals. There's a mismanagement in the brand that's being portrayed and the brand that you experience. Right.
That's a message right there.
Listen. So again, I'm not going to say the name, but there is a fast food chain that I went to one time, and I don't go to a lot of fast food chains, but I went to this fast food chain, Jessica, to get my kids something really fast. We were on the road and trying to move quickly, and one of the signs near the logo, they had the logo inside this place, and one of the signs says, I'm trying to say this without giving away who it is, but it had the word fresh in some of the terminology. But I'm looking back while they're preparing the food, and I'm like, okay, the burger is frozen, the bread is hard, the potatoes are frozen, right? This ain't fresh.
What about it is fresh? Not a thing.
But I think that happens with people's lives sometimes. So to your point about this one restaurant where your mom gets physically sick when she thinks about it, you get excited. We need to take the ownership in our own lives of making sure that what we want to be known for, that is what our daily activities and lives look like and represent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you got some points for us today that we're going to walk through that I think is really, really important, and I think it's going to be powerful. And before you start with the first one, here's what I want to say that I think is really key. For those of you that are listening in, because this idea of your brand, this idea of your reputation is clearly and cleanly tied to your life purpose. So here's a very important point that I want you to know before Jessica comes with these 3 points for today. You do not decide your purpose, you discover it. Okay? You do not sit down at a table and decide your purpose, you discover it. And that discovery is the process that you walk through. And we can talk more about that later. But anyway, Jessica, point number 1, what is it?
That was such a beautiful bridge to point number 1. So there's 3 things you've got to discover in order to establish a brand that's going to be a legacy brand. Now, anybody can do a flash in the pan brand. And if you think about, there's so many businesses that are no longer open. I'm probably going to date myself. There's no longer a Circuit City. Best Buy beat them out. There's no longer a Kmart. So there are some brands that you can build. But if you're talking about a legacy brand, these are the 3 things that you need to discover in order to establish and make sure that it is firm on a firm foundation for your brand. And so I say that what you said was a great transition, because the first thing you need to discover is your superpower. Discover your superpower. Now, the reason why I say this is, 1, because I have an 11-year-old that loves comics. And so when she's like telling me all these people's superpower, I'm like, okay, I can't keep up with all of this. I think she's a Marvel fan. She would get me if I said DC. She's a Marvel fan. And so
don't say that wrong.
Right. I was gonna say, let me get that. This between her and my brother, I gotta say it real right. Say it right. But it's because she knows the different superheroes and what they bring to the table and who they support. And so when we talk about discovering your superpower in your career, you've really got to have a power script. So
Mm,
here's the thing with discovering your superpower. I know we're not going to walk out with the cape on and all that good stuff. And sometimes people really struggle around determining what is it that I'm good at. So I want you to think about these few things when you're discovering your superpower and you're
mm,
developing that power script. I want you to think about what you can get lost in for hours. Absolutely for
mm,
hours. So like, one of the things that my mother loves to do is she loves to knit. One of the things that I know I can get lost in for hours is studying human behavior. That's why I'm a clinical social worker. I can watch documentaries on human behavior for a long time, but I'm actually building a career, around studying human behavior. What are the things? So, what are the things you can get lost in as a hobby? What are the things that people like to pick your brain for? So that
mm,
career space, I didn't realize. So I look back on my career as a career coach was way back in high school. I had friends come up to me and say, "Can you help me fill out this application to get a job? What should I
mm,
do on this interview to make sure that I get this job? Can you be a reference for me?" So this was something that over the years people kept asking me questions, and I wish I would have leaned into much earlier. But typically, there's something that you're known for that people will
mm,
come to you and ask you questions around. The other thing is, I know this is going to sound somewhat uncomfortable for people, but what are your struggles? What are you
mm.
know better than anybody what your struggles are, and that is really the connection to your superpower. So I often, like I said about in my introduction, that I help melanin millennial moms, right? Because that it's a struggle in there to be a mom. It's a struggle in there to be a woman of color. It's a struggle. There's some ageism around being a millennial. So I know I can connect, and that's actually going to connect us to the next point. So I'm gonna slow down. But that is a part of my struggle. I know what it's like to try to, be booked and busy, but try to run my daughter to dance class. So what are
Wow.
your struggles? What are some of the things, that's where you can determine some of those workarounds to discovering your superpower. And that power script introduces you to other people. It's that value proposition. So when I'm talking about that, I mean, a lot of times people will say it's your elevator pitch, but I really think it's more in depth than that. It's really telling people why they should listen to you and what you
Mm,
can offer them. But you won't
yeah,
know unless you know what your superpower is.
that's so good. That is so good. That's so good. And
Yeah.
here's one of the things that I've discovered, Jessica, along the way around this whole conversation of purpose. And man, we're giving away all the good stuff today. Um, I believe that if you actually look at children when they're not distracted by feeling like adults are watching them, you will start to actually see clues of their purpose in their childhood,
Mm-hmm.
right? But as adults, we get to the place where we start having to be adults and we got to pay bills and we got to be serious about this and we have responsibilities, that the creativity, right, that God has put on the inside of us. Because here's the other thing that I figured out too, Jessica. For a long time, I never saw myself as a quote unquote creative. I always
Mm-hmm.
thought that creatives were like people that were in the arts. So, like if you were a painter or if you were,
A
an
musician.
artist, if you were a
Uh-huh.
musician, right? But when I started actually studying scripture and studying human behavior, I figured out that we're all actually called to be creators of something,
Mm. That's a
right?
message.
We serve the God of ultimate creativity, and He put something on the inside of us that we're supposed to be creating. Sometimes that's creating things through our words. Sometimes that's creating things through conversation. Sometimes that's written. Sometimes that's production, right? Some people are really good with their hands. They can take some tools, come out of a woodshed, and an hour later, you're like, "Wow, I didn't like that's amazing." In your case, you are creating a pathway for people to grow in their personal lives and in their careers. So we're all called to be creators. And so I think, as you were talking earlier about that whole superpower idea, I think sometimes for some people, the best thing they could do is actually go back to their childhood and remember some of those aha
Mm-hmm.
moments that they had when they were
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, as a clinical social worker, I do have to sprinkle in the fact that if you experience some trauma in your childhood, some of your superpowers may have been squashed. Someone may have told you it wasn't a superpower, that there was something weird or strange about you. I've been an introvert since a child and didn't realize that was a part of my superpower as well. So I do want to recognize that. So you may want to get some support around discovering that. Now, you may not be at the level where you want to invest in a coach, but there are some personality assessments that really dive in deep into who you are. Now, I don't work for this particular company, but I do want to mention this because it is free 99. Check out 16personalities.com. I absolutely love that one. I often infuse it in my coursework because it tells you who you are as a supervisor and who you are as a subordinate. And it tells you about how you behave in different relationships and things of that nature, and actually gives you career suggestions. Just be open to it. It's completely free. It'll take you about 20 minutes to complete it. And when I say free, it gives you like 19 pages of information about who you are. And that's just a part of that superpower discovery. Stay away from, are you like a flower or a rock type assessments? Nobody, like, you're not gonna be able to translate that to a resume or translate that to your landing page.
I'm a daffodil.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter if that I'm a carnation, but that's definitely going to the information that you find from that. If you find a skilled resume writer or if you find a skilled career coach, they can take that information and make sure that is incorporated into your brand. But I'm doing this in a specific order because, a lot of people will jump to, okay, I got to make a website, I got to update my resume. But if you do these things out of order, it's going to make the job much harder and also make the time finding the job that you want that much longer. So first find out who you are before you ask jobs. Can I get a job here? Can I get a job here?
Yeah. I love that website. I've used it a number of times. I even recommended others to do it. And you don't know this, Jessica, but actually, those of you that are listening, if you go to my website, diversechurchjobs.com, we actually also have an assessment on our website called True Motivate. So you can take True Motivate as an assessment. We'll follow up with you. We'll get the information once you submit the assessment, and it will produce like a 30-page results on you that really doesn't just tap into what you do, but taps into why you do it. That's why it's called True Motivate, because it gets into your motivations. So yeah,
I know what my homework is for tonight.
Yeah. So those of you that are listening, go to diversechurchjobs.com. On the left-hand side of the tab, type in True Motivate, and you'll see the information right there. So the first thing that Jessica is saying to us today is you gotta discover your superpower. If you're going to build your brand, if you're going to get on track to building your personal brand and to being who you're supposed to be, the first thing you got to do is you got to discover your superpower. All right, Jessica, what's number 2?
Number 2, let me get my notes because I know I will get excited. The number 2 is to discover your audience. Discover your audience. Yeah. You got to know what they need. You got to know what they need, because the people who are out there moving and shaking, creating things have to know that there's a need for it. Now, businesses have, whole departments that are dedicated to research and development. They are whole units that are developed around how do I market to the client that I have researched. And so you've got to know who your audience is, especially in the job market. So for instance, if I know that there's a demand for women of color in the mental health field, didn't I say I know how to help melanin millennial moms? There's my superpower, meeting my audience. So you've got to know your audience and what they need. You got to know your audience better than they know themselves. You got to do the numbers. You got to look at the research and tell them where they are headed if they do not incorporate your talent. So for instance, when you're on an interview and they're asking you questions and they ask you, do you have any questions? Your questions should be targeted. You should know what projects they're working on and ask them, have you considered this for that project? Because see, you're already letting them know, I'm already in this with you. I'm already aligned with your message, aligned with your mission. And if you don't include me on your team, you're going to miss a good thing. So what are those needs? What are those needs that your audience has in order to further who they are? What can you do to make sure that you make them money, save them money, or connect them to opportunity? But you've got to know your audience. A lot of times, businesses will say, who's your ideal client, and they really want, they get in deep. They want to know their age. What do they spend money on? So it's the same thing. When you're looking at these companies, where do they want to expand? They say they're diverse. Do they have somebody on their staff that actually aligns with that? So really, really get to know those details of your audience.
Yeah, that's amazing. And let me tell you what else is so good about that. Oftentimes, and I'm gonna go church for just a second. I'm gonna go church for just a second. So the church is available for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But certain churches and particular churches, they are not called to reach everybody. So from a business standpoint, business people say, if you're trying to reach everybody, you're going to reach nobody.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's a target audience that even churches have. And so you think about this, like there's you as an individual, like even for me, there's certain people that I already know I'm not called to. That doesn't mean that those people are bad. It doesn't mean that I'm bad. It doesn't mean that those people are not worth people's time and all of that. There's just some people, like I know that I'm not called to that. And if you don't have that hard conversation with yourself, I think that you will find where you're very, very frustrated because you're trying to do everything and reach everybody when in fact, you're not even called to reach some of those people that you're calling to reach or that you think you're trying to reach, you know? Like even like this right here, like this show is not designed for atheists.
Like, you can listen if you want to.
They can listen and they can glean from it, but they're not our target audience, right? So they would be on the periphery of individuals that we're actually trying to lean in and touch. And yes, some of this content they will absolutely be able to benefit from, but we are laser focused on people who are professionals, who are career driven, and they are also people of faith and at times have cognitive dissonance between your faith and your performance or your professional life. Mm-hmm. We want to integrate those two things and show you how to win at both. So yeah, I think you got to discover your audience. That's real good. So number one, you said you got to discover your superpower. Number two, you said you got to discover your audience. What's number three?
The last thing you have to discover is your message. And again, you got to do this in order, because if you don't know your superpower, you're going to be catering to the wrong audience. And if you're catering to the wrong audience, your message is already messed up. So you got to know what your superpower is, know what your audience is, and then discover your message. And so this goes back to the example I was talking about when I see the Golden Arches or I see this particular restaurant, there's a message that's being sent to me when I look at that establishment. When I walk inside, I'm expecting a certain level of customer care. I'm expecting a certain level of cleanliness, and it depends on what type of restaurant I'm going to. And so when we're thinking about our personal brands, we've got to think about that in-person and virtual behavior and interactions that display the message of our superpower and who we support, our audience. So when you're thinking about posting something, is this on, people will say, is this on brand? I don't know if it is or not, but what message is what they're saying? Does this convey the message that our brand wants people to know? So if I'm trying to convey to people that I'm open and available for work, should I be posting pictures where I'm not in alignment with what their mission is? The children say, should I be posting pictures turning up on the weekends? I don't think so. Should I be posting highly political posts? Not if you want a federal government position. So you really have to be on message. So if I were to go and peruse your LinkedIn, if I were to go to look at any of your social media sites, everything that you are posting, liking, clicking, share, sending should be aligned with your message. What do you want people to know? So if I'm posting something in my stories and it's about my daughter, oh, well, she's a mom. If I'm posting something about Black History Month, well, she did say she was for melanin people with color. If I'm posting something about some music that happened, when I was much younger, my millennial audience is going to connect with me. So there's nothing that's going to deter from that message. And even especially for those who are pursuing careers, and this is where I might have to pass the baton to you, especially for those who are pursuing careers in ministry. Does your message convey that? Do you have a platform where people can come to see you? And know who you are, weed out everybody else. Yes, I'm such a fan of social media, but I always encourage my clients to have a landing page where you can collect email addresses and have people come to you. Not a lot of job seekers have that. They're really trying to go to other people's websites and apply for jobs, but it says something when you say, here's my email, when it's Jessica Canty at jessicacanty.com. Because I didn't realize it at the time, but people will say, oh, jessicacanty.com. I literally was at a function and the lady went on my website and said, oh, you're a business person. I was like, oh, you know what? I wasn't thinking it, but that was the brand that I was conveying just by giving her my email address. So you want to think about the in-person and virtual behavior.
That's so good. I'm going to give those that are listening, Jessica, I'm going to give them a free tip today. in light of what you just said. This is free. This is free, but I think it's a game changer. And that is this. Go to a domain purchaser and buy your domain name. Go and buy your domain name. What used to be the Social Security card 50 years ago is now your website name today.
That's a deep connection right there.
Yeah, but I think it ties into your brand, right? Because, you know, when you're looking for jobs, if you're a service provider, if you want to be considered to be, you know, we use this term a little loosely, but expert in your space, or, you know, you want to be seen as someone that is creating value in that particular space. One of the first things that's going to happen when you're applying for a job or a business opportunity or a career change or whatever it may be, people are going to literally Google you. Mm-hmm. So what comes up when you get Googled? That's a question that everybody needs to ask, right? And here's the truth. Unfortunately, the good, the bad, and the ugly comes up. And are you prepared to answer for that? And so the more that you can create positive content that represents your brand, now don't just create good content that's inconsistent with actually who you are, because then when people interact with who you are in real life, if that doesn't match the brand, that's even worse, because now you have no credibility with the people that feel like they've already researched you and, you know, dug up who you are. And I mean, people, so I literally, Jessica, I was invited to join this board and joined the board and got to the very first board meeting. It was actually the board orientation. And one of the other board members that had already been on the board was walking around meeting the new board members. And I'm one of the new ones. And I introduced myself. She's like, "Oh yeah, you're Christopher Harris. I looked your stuff up online. I was so impressed with that." Here's what she said. "How's the house coming?" I said, "What?" She's like, "I saw that you're building a house. How's it coming?" And I'm sitting here like, did this lady really look up and see that I was building a house? Like, what in the world is going on? So people are Googling, right? People are Googling, people are researching, and you want to make sure that your brand represents what you want to represent. Here's a question I think is important, Jessica, something to think about in light of what you said, because you said discover your superpower, discover your audience, and discover your message. So discover your SAM, your
love
superpower,
it.
Your audience, and your message. All right.
I love it. Simplify it for me.
Yeah. So here's what I think people need to ask. Here's a question I think people need to ask. And I love what you said earlier. What was the statement you made? You talked about the power script. Here is something I think people should add to their power script. What do you want the story to say when you can't speak for yourself?
Now that's a message in a book. I love it. Should be on the mug. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, honestly, I think that's when we talk about the message, and if you know who your superpower is in your audience, people are going to talk about you when you're not in that space. People are going to recommend you when you're not in that space. Literally just today, I was in a meeting and someone said, "Well, Jessica, we recommended you for the professionalism course." I was like, "Wait, I wasn't even in the space. I didn't raise my hand for that, but that's what you're known for." And so I was like, okay. And I'm not walking around with it on a t-shirt. So a lot of people, again, think their brands are like, wearing it on their t-shirt and making sure everyone sees that about you. I want people to know that I'm wealthy and that's why I'm wearing all these expensive things. No, but what is the message that you want people to know? And then connecting it back to faith, that's what favor really is. Favor really is when people know who you are when you're not in the room and are able to connect you to purpose and promise around those things.
Yeah, I think a part of that, though, Jessica, to that point about people knowing who you are when you're not in the room, is this word right here. Look at that word right there.
That consistency.
You got to be consistent, man. I think people really undervalue that. Like, the fast food chains that are really popular, they are popular because they are consistent. And I'm saying that because, all right, quick story. I was in London, and this is not an indictment on the UK, and this is not an indictment on London, because I know that people all over the world may watch this. But the very first time I went, I was struggling with the food options. Maybe it was just the area of town I was in. Maybe it was I don't know. It just, I was struggling with the food options, and I was hungry, and I was like, as you said, I think in episode number 1, man, I was hungry, I was angry, I was lonely, and I was tired.
Bad combination.
Listen, man, I was hangry. You hear what I'm saying? I just I wanted some good food, and I was struggling. Man, I messed around, and I had pulled up a map to find this particular location for this meeting I was going to, and happened to walk across the street, came around the corner, and there was this American fast food place. When I tell you, I felt like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. So here's the deal, though. This is where I'm going with the point. I walked in, looked at the menu, and I ordered. I was in an entirely different country, and it was consistent with what I had experienced when I was in the United States. That's what people should experience when they experience our brand. Consistency.
Absolutely.
Consistency.
I think consistency is about character, and I think the reason why so many people are lacking it.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
Consistency is all about character.
Woo, goodness.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good.
And I think a part of the reason why it's not something that people are leaning into now is because they think it's old-fashioned. If you're doing the same thing, there's something wrong. Like you need to be doing the next great thing. This is the new trend. Everybody's doing a TikTok. Everybody's doing this, and everybody's, wearing this and saying this and eating that. So we are so accustomed to flash in the pan, even fast fashion. Everybody's wearing this. And so it just seems old-fashioned to be consistent. Like, one of the things I often talk to millennials about our careers is that we're among the first generation to not stay at a job for a long time. We say it's for work-life balance, which I'm all for, but generations prior to millennials were like, they would stay on a job for 40, 50 years. They will retire off of a job. And so it's just, there's nothing in our society that says consistency pays off. That's why, what is this? In the middle of February, a lot of people's New Year's resolutions are out the door. They went to the gym 2 or 3 times in January. That's why they're not, because consistency is not something that is bred in us. And it does take a great deal of character.
Yeah, man, listen, the gym, many of the gyms, they brought in extra equipment that they leased just for January, because they knew the gym was going to be busy for about 30 days. And after that, they still making money off the people who said their lives were going to change this year when it came to working out. And there's some health food stores too that had to overstock that now are back to normal too, because people are like, no, I'm just going to get this bag of chips. I'm good.
That's why vitamins are half off in January. They know, because again, they are on what the message is. We can help you with your New Year's resolutions. So they know how to be consistent with that message.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Listen, this has been absolutely amazing. Today, we've been just giving you a starting point, just a starting point. First of all, we want to raise the topic and raise the idea that you are a brand. And now it's important, I believe, for those of you that are believers, those of you that follow the Bible, to recognize that there's nothing wrong with godly ambition, but that ambition absolutely needs to be checked by God. Your motive has to be right. Your motive has to be pure, because after your motive is checked, then your methods could follow, right? And so if you got all that stuff together, then I think that these 3 points that that Jessica shared with us today are so very powerful. And so here they are again. So number 1, she said, you got to discover your superpower. Discover your superpower. Number 2, you got to discover your audience. Discover your audience. Number 3, you got to discover your message. Discover your message. 3 incredible points that I think are just really powerful as a good starting point. And I think the key word in all 3 of those obviously is discover. I said it earlier, you don't decide your purpose, you discover it. And I believe, Jessica, that many people don't actually have the commitment to stay the process to actually discover what they're called to do. They know they have a calling, they know they have a purpose, and they would rather say, I don't know what it is, rather than actually do the hard work of finding and discovering it.
I don't know. I'd rather do the hard work than have the nagging feeling. So I guess you got to pick your challenge, pick your hard.
Yeah, you got to pick your struggle. Pick your struggle. So So Jessica, tell everybody where they can find you, how they can connect with you, and some of the services that you're offering.
Well, as always, I love helping with career path planning, resume refreshing, and your reputation revitalization. And you can check me out at jessicacanty.com. You can check me out on all social media platforms. I'm Jessica Canty, and I would love to get connected with you.
Yep. She's on. Are you on Pinterest too?
You know what? I'm on Pinterest as an individual because that's a dangerous site, man. You can go down some holes on Pinterest, but I haven't established it for the business as of yet. No.
Okay. So not on Pinterest, but you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram. Are you on TikTok?
TikTok and YouTube. I have an 11-year-old, so I'm on TikTok.
All right. What about Snapchat? You on Snapchat too?
She's been trying to convince me, so I'm doing my research. She's like, Mom, we need to check that out. So I'm going to do my research, and maybe I have to do the contract for both of us for Snapchat. Yeah.
And you're on Clubhouse.
I am on Clubhouse. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. So there's her website right there on the screen, jessicacanty.com. Go check her out. I know that she would be excited to have a conversation with you and to help you. I've got 2 websites that you can go to. You can check me out at christopherjharris.com. I'm committed. We are committed to helping people live inspired lives, and to do that in a strategic, wise way. And so you can check out a number of things that we have going on there personally as it relates to my personal brand and what we're working on and all that kind of good stuff. Go check out christopherjharris.com. And then, of course, diversechurchjobs.com. We are here to help people of color in ministry find incredible ministry opportunities. Listen, we want you to discover your calling and thrive in your career. This has been another conversation of callings and careers, Christ-centered career coaching conversations. Come on, Christ-centered career coaching conversations. How about those 5 C's right there? There you go. So Jessica, anything else before we close out today?
Nope, can't wait till our next conversation.
It's going to be good. Matter of fact, let's tell everybody what we're talking about the next time. Our next conversation is what? What are we talking about? Let's pull up the notes here for a minute. Give everybody a quick teaser on what we're talking about the next time. Our next show is titled From Cubicle to the Pulpit, Cultivate Your Career Changes.
I can't wait. That's going
to be amazing. All right, Jessica, before we end the day, here's the real question for you. Here's the real question for you. All right. We want an exclusive. All right. Did you watch the halftime show of the Super Bowl?
I hope nobody gets mad at me, but I was actually in the air. So I was actually flying back home. I missed it, but my daughter told me I could catch it on YouTube. So I can't wait to see it. I don't know how, but it was like the last flight back to the DC area. And it just happened to be for the entirety of the Super Bowl. So I literally was touching down and seeing who won.
So was there anybody else on your flight?
There was a lot of people on my flight. It was a full flight. So I wasn't the only one. So Misery loves company.
Y'all didn't watch the game? Did the flight not have TVs?
Listen, okay. I don't want to disparage this particular airline, but I won't be riding this particular airline anymore because that wasn't available to me. I'll just put it that way. I now know don't fly that airline. The message that they gave me is don't fly this anymore.
Yeah, our brand is not consistent with advanced technology.
Note yourself, don't do that anymore.
Yeah, at this juncture, if you're an airline and you don't have Wi-Fi and you don't have TVs on the plane,
or a charging station. But again, I'm on my soapbox about that. I'll get on my soapbox about it.
Okay.
I was like, I'm just going to have to pick me a different airline.
Yeah. All right. So so we want to know though, Jessica, when you get ready to watch the halftime show, we want to know if you danced or not. That's all we want to know. Did you dance or not?
Okay. So next time I come back, if I dance, I'm gonna make sure I show y'all the dance too.
Come on. I see you.
Shoulder action. Have your little head bop with it.
I love it. I love it. See that, y'all? She's helping melanin millennial moms with music. Come on.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Callings and careers. We want you to find your calling and thrive in your career. I'm Christopher Harris. That's Jessica Canty. We'll see y'all the next time. Peace.